Welcome, everybody. We have another episode of Cubs Now. Alex Cohen, Lance Brozdowski here. Cubs finishing off a road trip at Seattle, at Arizona. Got a little testy in Arizona. Quentin Berry getting into it. Pete Crow Armstrong getting into it because of possibly stepping off the rubber. Eduardo Rodriguez. Just what's your take on the road trip and all the fun stuff or not so fun stuff?
This has been a Quentin Berry highlight reel for the last couple of games, right? He's holding back Pete at third so Pete doesn't get tossed. Then he's also the one kind of maybe relaying signs potentially, which is totally legal, as Lavola eventually then apologized to counsel on. Unexpectedly, electric games, I would say. I know these two teams are both in the wild card, but it's been a fun pocket of games. Unfortunately, that Tuesday night game was really rough. Felt like they led that for 90% of the battle.
And they did.
Unfortunately, just collapsed.
And when you think of this road trip, you think of the walk-off losses. Let's start with the good before we talk about the bad. The two trade deadline acquisitions that a lot of people talked about, Clay Holmes and Kevin Gausman, when they made it was, are these guys going to contribute in a positive manner when it comes to, the Cubs making a push for the postseason or starting in the postseason? If Arizona is any indication, they are exactly where they need to be. Two huge starts.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I really enjoy how I think Hotovy and the pitching cohort have embraced them in the org, in the sense of they've both been really good, but they both kind of came in, did what they were doing for a couple starts, and then we saw each of these guys, Clay Holmes, on Tuesday in Arizona throwing a bunch of cutter to righties, which is a little deviation from what he normally does. We saw Gausman on Monday posted the most called strikes the pitcher has in a game this season at 29. It's the most actually since, I think, Chris Bassett back in 2023, which is because he was throwing a lot of four-seam fastball. So I love how they're kind of forcing these guys into maybe different patterns, trying to get them out of the subtle funks they've been in. Clay Holmes hasn't really been in a funk, but the velo's been down a little too, and I want to see that come back up. But Gausman, great start, two okay ones, not great ones, and then he's kind of bounced back as well. So the main point and the takeaway I have from this, Alex, is that when we went back to the deadline and we were grading them out, not even us, but just other sites, like MLB.com and Baseball America and others, had this deadline for the Cubs at an A- to A, a very good deadline. They were up there as one of the top teams that upgraded. At the time, it was whoa, they did a lot, And now, at this moment in time, I almost view that deadline and the pieces they acquired, particularly these two arms and Zephyr as essential, given how some of the other things have broken.
Not a want, but more of a need for this team to make a push into the postseason.
They did a very good job kind of assuming subtle regression on a couple names, and as a result of that, there are arms to backfill to not make it such that we're having a podcast where the intro is, did they not do enough? Webb walked off a couple times in the last week. Palencia looking a little wild. He's probably still my postseason closer, my best arm. I think he'll ascend to that. And then you have Shota's velos dropping, and Matt Boyd, the four-seam shape, looked a little not so great, but he pitched pretty well on Wednesday, so I hope that's back in the correct direction. But you have I won't say down arrows on Boyd and Shota, but you have question marks on them of you need them to kind of dominate in September to be confident and rolling them out. And as a result of that, it's okay, now the focus goes to Gausman and Holmes to be the 1-2 of a rotation in a playoff set.
You look at Clay Holmes, you have that first start against Kansas City, which was his first start in 2 months where he struggled.
Yeah.
3 really good starts where he's not getting that much swing and miss, but getting a lot of outs, not walking guys, lots of ground balls per Clay Holmes. And then Kevin Gausman, 2 starts, 2 really good and 2 mediocre. What are your overall thoughts with the way that they play for the Cubs and how they pitch for the Cubs going into September, and then for the postseason? I mean, we've talked about Game 1 starter versus Game 2 starter versus Game 3 starter.
We're going to continue to do
a lot, but we can continue to do that because Clay Holmes has been really good.
I know. I still think Kevin Gausman's my Game 1 starter. I feel like we've definitely changed this over the last weeks or so. We kind of thought Boyd was in that realm, but I do think he's fallen back a little bit from a swing and miss standpoint. But again, I think any of these guys can ascend to that, but I think Kevin Gausman's my Game 1. He's pitched really well. I think he's a less volatile profile, despite the fact the last 2 for him have been kind of tough. You see the Jordan and the Pippen here has been fantastic for both of these guys. I know, yeah. Who is Rodman on this team?
Probably Shota.
I was going to say it was Shota, the personality there.
Right.
But I'd say Clay Holmes is the one where anytime he's been on the mound, look at his stats over the last 3 years. I know he was a reliever 2 years ago at this point, 24. The variance is so low that the way this team makes a deep run in the postseason is because they bludgeon other teams offensively. And as a result of that, I think Clay Holmes is an essential piece of this team. Because I don't think he's ever going to allow more than 4 runs in a start. Even if it's 1 run every start, that's fine. His volatility's so low. To score off him You have to string together multiple hits, which is so hard to do in the postseason for any team, even a team like the Brewers that's more kind of oppo slap heavy. So I just think he's such a stabilizing force. It's like every time he's out there, you're getting 65% ground ball rate. You're letting the infield work, which is a strength of this team. And he provides you 5 innings. And it's like, listen, if the Cubs don't score 4 to 5 runs, they probably shouldn't win that game. So if Clay Holmes can give you 2 earned, 3 earned through 5 or 6, then I just think he's going to be a glue guy, so to speak, from a rotation standpoint, where he's making 2 starts in every series, hands down.
We were talking about this in June. There were so many question marks about the starting pitching. That seems to be solidified at this point.
Yeah.
The bullpen, to me, is where the question marks are at, just because from a health perspective, getting Daniel Palencia back, getting him confident, and right now you get walked off on 3 times during the road trip. To me, it's a question mark. Where are you at with the bullpen?
Yeah, it is a question mark. I think Bruce came in. We were talking on pregame, at least myself and Bruce. Shout out Bruce. Shout out Bruce. Lounging with Levine, always a good segment. And right before that segment, we had the Ben Brown news from Taylor McGregor tweeting out, reporting that he's running into some setback stuff. We'll see exactly what happens through the end of the season. But he was initially in that segment. We were pitching him as like here's the elixir, like, okay, if you're not totally confident in Webb, you're a little worried.
Well, that was your X factor.
I know he's my X factor. Yeah. I think he was everybody's X factor. I won't claim that myself, but he felt like the name where it's like, oh, I can't wait to have him back, because he could be that 6th to 7th inning guy. If you want him to be the 9th guy, if Palencia doesn't get it right, he fills that role. And now I don't really know if you can count on him. Like, we'll see. I don't want to get too negative with it, but it doesn't sound amazing given this has been a recurring problem for him. So as a result of that now, I view it as like you have your cards. Like the cards are there. And you maybe have, like, you could call it the Joker or the wild card in Shelby Miller and some other pieces we'll talk about in a second. But focusing on the names that are presently here and impacting Palencia, Webb, and Zephyr, that's your 7, 8, 9, man. Like maybe you bring in lefty Hobie of some kind.
Or Caleb Thielbar.
Thielbar in some way if you think the lefty pocket is big. But I also think that they probably trust Webb more in that spot to be like the lefty killer late in a game.
Yeah,
so
change up neutralizer.
Those are your 3 names. Yeah. It's a matter of how they sequence. In each of them, I wouldn't say if you're building a circle of trust is like firmly in the center of that circle of trust. Webb was a week ago, and now he's kind of like moved maybe to the edge of the circle.
For 2 months.
For the entire season, it's been unbelievable. But again, like I do think we're very recency biased around our sentiment around arms if you're watching games. You see a guy get walked off 2 times, that 3rd time coming in, you're not like shutting the game off and going to bed because you think they want it. You're more like, I got to watch this because he hasn't been good recently. So yeah, I think it's a tough spot. Like my bet is always going to be on the dude who throws the hardest and strikes out the most guys, which is Daniel Palencia. So what he did in WBC, the moxie he's had, he looked really good in Seattle as well. He just had a kind of a weird one in Arizona there on Tuesday. He's my name that is like your best reliever.
Yes.
And wherever Counsell wants to use him,
he throws his best pitch against your best hitter, that you're the most confident that he's going to get that guy out. It's Danny.
The question is, how do the 7th, 8th pieces there in Zephyr, and Webb line up against, say, the Brewers, who have Miguel, Ashby, and Uribe, and then have Chad Patrick and Senzatella to throw wherever they want? Like those bullpens, you look at the constructions of some of these other bullpens, they're better. Maybe the Phillies are one that hasn't been great, although they have John Duran is unbelievable closer.
Well, that's because they have like 3 starting pitchers who can go 6, 7 deep into it.
They do, and they don't need as much. But their 7th and 8th, I'm not as like Killen. I think got IL'd, and Keller's down for the year. I don't
and then
even
you
know
have Kirk Ring, who's been up and down.
Kirk Ring's been up and down. Yeah. He had that weird one in LA last year, if I remember correctly, as well. So I think that they're like squarely in the middle of the pack, but I like the names. It's just I think I'm trying to like remove myself from the recency bias of how they've pitched in the last week, clouding how I think they will go going forward. I still think I have a general level of confidence around Webb and Palencia specifically. Zephyr, I still think we're getting to know. We've seen some moments where it's been like, I can't wait to have him in the 8th inning. My brain on that trade is still in the sense that it's a long-term move as well as a short-term move. And if the short-term doesn't pay off and he's fine through the end of the year,
the reason you got him, 2030.
The reason you got him is that, like, listen, the Angels don't come up in conversations when you're talking about the best development teams. Like, the Cubs have an opportunity to make that dude elite. They give him a full offseason of work into next year and subsequent seasons, and that dude could be a lockdown 9th inning guy. As to whether you get that at the end of the season into the postseason, a little more up in the air to me. I would love to have it, and we've definitely seen flashes of it, but my confidence level in Webb and Palencia is definitely higher than Zephyr.
2 things when it comes to the Cubs bullpen that are question statements, but I want your comment on. First, Jacob Webb. He was so good all season.
Amazing.
2 walk-off home runs on his 3rd best pitch. It was on sliders. Are you surprised by that?
I am. I get what they're doing there. Like, right changeups are a very weird pitch. It's just not thrown a lot. We've seen a team like the Rays throw it a lot this year with, think like Brian Baker, Nick Martinez, used to be a former Red. Cubs fans might remember. They have those guys throwing a lot of that pitch, even like Freddie Peralta now they got. But it is like an offering that a lot of guys don't throw. So I almost wonder whether Webb sees that as like, hey, I don't want to show this pitch 4 times to one hitter in a game, even though I know it's my best offering. So can I grab strike? Can I get to 0-1 or turn a 1-1 to a 1-2 with a breaking ball and then go to my changeup? Because I worry maybe that if I should throw that 4 times to a guy, to a righty in particular, they get a better feel for it. So I guess I get the theory of it, but listen, hindsight's 2020.
Of course, yeah.
Like he maybe was flying a little too close to the sun on a couple of those where it's like, you're 1-1, like the 1-1 pitch to Waldschmidt Tuesday night was one in postgame. Alex Cole and I were talking about where I thought that was the pitch of the game. I think you'd argue maybe some of the challenges were, but him going 1-1 there and missing on a changeup in, like that flips it to 2-1 and Waldschmidt's immediately in swing mode and then he throws a breaking ball to try to get back in the count. And that's tough. Like that's the count you have to flip. 1-1 counts are the leverage count. I think a lot of people talk about first pitch strike, which pitchers talk about a lot. Totally agree, important count. But 1-1 is more important from how much it swings the slug a potential hitter can have. So long way for me to say like I'm in an interesting spot with thinking about Webb. I'm trying to remove myself from the last couple days. Like the recency bias in baseball, because you play 162 of these, can be so strong. He's been so good. I think he's a completely fine, very good 8th inning guy going forward. Okay. And I really think you need Palencia to step into 9th, strike out 30% of the batters he faces.
All right. The lack of swing and miss we've talked about from the pitching staff on this podcast. For me, I don't care about the starting pitching lack of swing and miss. Like Clay Holmes, you're going to go 65% ground balls. I don't care that you don't punch out 7. Your bullpen, it shrinks your margin for error for me.
No doubt. I agree.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, to me, it's more in the I talk about how like the most important part of a postseason is that like 6th inning. Like who's your reliever in that spot? Because most teams are not trying to push their closer there. They're trying to use like their second to 4th best arm. And that's how you match up bullpens. And you go like, this bullpen is great because the Brewers can use Senzatella in that spot. I know he hasn't been great with the Brewers, but he fits perfectly as like a 6th inning guy throwing 97,
yes,
which a lot of other teams don't have. The Cubs are like Thornton and Rolison, who've been great this year, but to your point, neither of them has an above-average strikeout rate for a reliever. So how close to the sun, to use this metaphor again, are you flying by going from Holmes to Thornton to Rolison, then to your pen, and just betting constantly that all the balls allowed in play
everything
get gobbled
works
up?
out well. Yeah.
And I know this is an amazing defensive team, but you know, if you double down the line and then single the other way, it's like the defense has no shot against those. You're taking away the majority of things up the middle, but there's a lot of slug down the lines that you can't really do anything with from a defensive standpoint. So it's a tough battle. Like I get the Cubs' angle of like winning on the margins with that through a regular season, but I think it's a similar concern the Brewers have from an offensive standpoint, where it's like they are super oppo-oriented, contact-based team. Sure, over 162 games, maybe that results in 90 to 95 wins, but that's not really intimidating from a game planning standpoint in the playoffs when you're like, oh, none of these guys are going to barrel me. I'm going to be in zone all the time against them. So I see it in a similar way of like the contact-oriented nature of the Brewers from an offense standpoint, almost as similar to the lack of swing miss from the Cubs pitching.
How they are
staff
initiating
generally.
contact, but
Yeah.
in the back of the bullpen, when things aren't clicking 100%, it makes you more susceptible.
I agree with you. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break here on Cubs Now. When we come back, we'll talk some Shelby Miller, talk some other fun stuff. Alex Bregman, Pete Crow Armstrong next. Alex Cohen, Lance Brozdowski here. We talked a lot about the Cubs bullpen in Block A. Didn't quite finish that. 2 names that I want to bring up. You kind of teased it in Block A. Shelby Miller, the comeback of comebacks. He's making his way back. He's rehabbing with AAA Iowa. He's hitting 98 miles per hour. We talked about him being an X factor for this team on the last episode. Now it's much bigger with Ben Brown possibly being on the show. Shelby Miller, big name for the Cubs.
Yeah, I do think this can this be the new X factor for us. It was Ben Brown, but you know our guy Jason Kemp here. Yeah, up to 98 is awesome. Like you go back a couple years, Shelby was sitting more in like the 94 to 5 area. He's probably touching 97ish, but we've seen like even the average four-seam velo for him really hop up. And it's a really good fastball. I mean, I love his mix, four-seam split. I think he's got a breaking ball as well. The Dodgers were actually a team to revive that split, which he came up throwing when he was a lot younger.
Yeah.
And he kind of turfed it, which was a bit odd. But that's a fun little combo. Like he's going to be good versus lefties as well. I won't say he's going to be as good as like Jacob Webb, who's been great versus lefties, but it's that similar idea of you're not going to run into like platoon problems with him. And the fastball's sick. Like, he's a fun pitcher. He becomes now the X Factor. We could put the Cubs Now banner on the X Factor.
One X Factor.
Yeah, we moved
to
it.
another
Unfortunately,
X
Ben
Factor.
Brown with him being down with this injury stuff. But he feels like a name. They have to give him runway in the majors. Like, I don't know when. Maybe it's when rosters expand and such.
Well,
but he's got to get some looks.
Does
gotta see
Ben
how he
Brown
looks.
being hurt change his acceleration to like, all right, we want you coming back. We don't want you wasting any more bullets in AAA. It's time to come up to.
It's a good question. I don't know if it changes the time. Like, obviously, like there's checks and points along a rehab stint. And the fact that he's looked so good, I imagine he's hit all.
Well, they probably have to
those,
pitch him in back-to-back games.
Yeah, there's some components of that, and as to whether they want to do that at AAA or the majors is a good question. But yeah, they're straddling that balance of like, they're trying to take down the Brewers for the division. You got 7 games coming up against them, so I don't really know. You kind of need your optimal team for those situations, and as to whether Shelby's in that or whether they get through that Brewers series and then bring him up to have a little more leeway around like. Maybe Counsell wants every reliever in that bullpen to be able to do a back-to-back for how important those Brewer games are.
Well, I think in September you have to do that just because of the amount of innings that these guys have thrown.
So, listen, I'm not sure. I don't have an over-under date on when Shelby's up. Maybe it's post-Brewer series and stuff, but he's going to get major league innings. You got to see how he looks, and I'm really excited to see him up there.
All right, another arm. Justin Steele on his way to making his comeback. Last time he pitched was April. He had surgery in May, making a comeback in 2026. You see Justin Steele, a few more looks from his second session, throwing live batting practice. The team did incorporate an up-down interval this time to simulate sitting between innings. Man, Justin Steele coming back 2026. We talked about this on our last episode when we were projecting the rosters. I think we saw a roster with both Ben Brown and Justin Steele on it, and I said, man, like that's really tough to predict. I think that there's going to be one. Right now, it looks like that one is Justin Steele if he comes back and healthy, which would be great for him.
Yeah, I mean, I've been poking around a little on this, and like I think it's okay to be measured from like the organization perspective as to like how aggressive they are in saying we can't wait to have him back. But obviously, Steele has been very aggressive in saying he will come back and such. I'm kind of leaning towards, from the people I've spoken with, that like he's going to be back. I think this is not something. I mean, you go back to maybe 3 pods ago. Anytime we brought him up, I was just like, listen, like we don't know.
You say Switzerland about it.
It's just tough. Like I legitimately had no idea. I was skeptical
16 months.
That's why I was skeptical. It's just if there's anybody that's going to be able to do this and present and leverage, and we talk about the dog plus.
Probably him.
Like heck yeah, I want him in the bullpen in the back end, and he would be an interesting problem I think to solve from a matchup standpoint because he's able to dominate righties with the 6 sweeper he has and such. So yeah, I'm leaning towards like this absolutely being a piece of their bullpen. Like I don't know what the probability is, but I think at this exact point in time, I would be surprised if he's not contributing leverage innings by the end of the year.
All right, so he hasn't pitched competitively since April last year. What does his rehab process, in your opinion, look like? Is it one where he goes to Iowa and he gets 3 outings and he's back up, or is it a longer period of time in pitching and competitive?
Yeah, I mean, if his goal is not to like get to, I mean, the up-down nature is nice. Like maybe they're trying to get him so he could do 1 up-down, and maybe he becomes like that skeleton key for the middle innings if you only want. Let's say like a David Peterson or a Boyd going 4 and you need someone to bridge. Maybe he throws 1 1/3 or 1 2/3, and he'd be a really good bridge to the bullpen guys we were talking about earlier in the show. So I'm not entirely sure. I was joking that we're going to have our last road to Wrigley, which I think it's just Callis and I. You're somewhere,
I will
right?
not be on it.
You will not be there, but
sorry.
It's okay. We're going to miss you, unfortunately. I enjoy having you on those shows a lot. But it'd be funny if they brought him down to AA and we're like, hey, man, we're trying to win a title for Knoxville.
Do you want to go? You
want a rehab start? Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen. Maybe they just send him right to AAA and such.
That would be incredible.
But I was in my head, I was like, oh, maybe it's like a 1% chance that he's the AA closer for a playoff game. That'd be fun, right?
Gosh, that would be incredible.
That'd be funny. That'd be like early September, like September 10th area is what we're talking about. But it'll probably be a couple rehabs, 4 to 5, I imagine. I don't think they're going to rush him. Like it's more, hey, last couple weeks of the season, maybe he gets an outing in Boston and it looks good in that last series or 2, and you get comfortable with the idea of him being an option. But yeah, we're moving this X Factor point around, and maybe it's Justin Steele. I know Shelby Miller's in there too.
Like
maybe they could share it.
It's like the baton and
the co-X Factors, yeah.
So, all right, we talked a lot about pitching here on Cubs Now. A little bit on the offensive side. Pete, Henry, Crow, Armstrong, MVP. MVP ballots came out, and once they were released, Pete Crow Armstrong is the betting favorite to win the 2026 National League MVP. Look at that MVP poll right there.
MLB
Pete Crow
experts
Armstrong,
here.
Shohei Ohtani, Kyle Schwarber, Jacob Mizorowski, Matt Olson. It is great to see Pete Crow Armstrong on that initial list.
It is, yeah. We saw Ohtani throwing a pen the other day too, so I think he could become a pretty fun race down the stretch. But I do still feel like Pete Crow Armstrong has it locked up. I've said that for a couple months here. Ohtani's going to have to come back and throw a month of 4 to 5 starts. I mean, we're like 5 days away from September. Like, he's got to get there real soon. So I think the markets have it correct. I think the MLB.com experts they pulled there that put Pete up top have it correct. And he should be rewarded for just an unbelievable season.
All right, well, Pete Crow Armstrong is likely the MVP of the National League, or hopefully one of the best players for the Cubs in the National League in the second half of the season. It's been Alex Bregman.
It has. He's been great. Yeah, our guy Christopher Antonacci and myself were looking at the Cubs versus breaking balls. This was a topic I think we mentioned on Cubs Now earlier in the year, where they were kind of struggling. They were seeing a lot of breaking balls and also not hitting them, so the league continued to just spin them to death. I remember there was a couple starts where, I don't remember who exactly, but there's a couple starters where you didn't expect them to dominate, and then all of a sudden they did. And now you have the turning of that page, so to speak, where the Cubs over the last, I think it is probably about month and a half, or let's say since the All-Star break, have been really strong versus breaking balls. They've also just been dominating in August, so those things are going to correlate pretty nicely. Some of the better offenses in all of baseball crush breaking balls, so it's good to see them doing that. But Bregman in particular is the name that is driving a lot of that. I think his OPS is up over 1,000 versus breaking pitches since the break, and it was well below that earlier in the year when he was kind of struggling. So he's been the catalyst to get them going on the path of being able to dominate a shape that so many in baseball have really stuck to and are throwing a ton to try to get hitters out and breaking.
I mean, you look at that tweet, 871 OPS over a 61-game stretch. And if you look at his end-of-season numbers, he's going to be a 4.5 to 5 WAR player. I mean, you look at his first season with the Chicago Cubs, it's kind of what we all wanted, although he did it in a different way than we expected.
Yeah, for sure. It wasn't as steady as I feel like we'd seen the prior Bregman years of he's an automatic month-to-month guy where he's very stable. I think of Freddie Freeman in the same way, where he doesn't really have peaks and valleys. It's kind of just Freddie's a 280 hitter for the entire season, and look at he's 30% above average by the end of the year. Bregman had a weird year. He wasn't great for a couple months, and now he's been unbelievable for a couple months. So the net of that has been very good, and of course I want that backloaded, right? You were able to get through the first couple months of the season as a very productive team without him being exceptional, and now you have, hopefully, momentum for him, the ability to dominate through September. You take that into the postseason for a guy that has had a bunch of postseason moments, and yeah, I think he's sequencing his season correctly, even though in the moment earlier this year,
it was a
everyone
struggle,
was hesitating
but you would rather him
contract.
Play much better in the second half while struggling in the first half than killing it in the first half and struggling in the second half.
Well, that's the Cubs offense last year the entire offense, not a player in particular, felt like they did that, right? Where the end of the year, it was this offense wasn't actually that good for the last 3 weeks, and then you go into the postseason and that kind of perpetuates. But now you have the inverse to some extent. Really tough May, that's way gone by now, and this team is having an unbelievable August. Maybe it falls a little from August and September, but I don't anticipate it being what it was in May again, and I think that creates a really nice floor for how many runs this team will score per game come October.
All right, a little Alex Bregman love there. One final note before we duck out of here. 150-year celebration for the Chicago Cubs this weekend against the Cincinnati Reds.
I believe the fans participated in the selection of it, and then there were some other elements that were brought in as well. I know Cohen and Lance were definitely involved with it, but it was cool to tag onto that show. It was awesome to go through some stat packs on these guys. Obviously, you're aware of the Sosa 01 season in '98 and these others, but to actually look through full stat lines for some of these guys and how much they impacted Cubs history was a lot of fun. That show will be really cool coming up. I believe it's Saturday here. It's going to be really fun. Bunch of people in attendance. Ryan Dempster, friend of the show, I believe is having intentional talk from Wrigley Field on its Friday or Saturday, one of those days. Yeah. Be sure to check that out as well. But yeah, it's really cool. I enjoy digging back into the history books. We had, I'm forgetting his name, the Cubs historian, Ed Hardy, showing some awesome old bats and ball and jerseys and stuff. So it's been a cool week, recapping Cubs history, 150 years of it.
And you have two current players on there, Ian Happ and Nico Horner. Just really an awesome honor for them.
It's great. Yeah, it was cool for Lester to reveal to them that they were on the squad as well. And I think that we're talking with Bruce. I won't say the names that Bruce thought should have been on there that weren't. That's a topic for another day. But it was fun. I enjoy when people put
that's another pod with Bruce. That's when he comes on. Oh my goodness,
he will have a lot to talk about, I'm sure. But But no, I think anytime you put together lists, you're always going to get that debate, and it's fun to even look at some of the guys that maybe should have made it. You think in your head, but
Bruce was alive for all 150 years, so it makes sense.
I feel like it should just be Bruce's 150 team or something along those lines.
I'm just messing with you. I'm just kidding.
He turns 151 next week, doesn't he?
He
No,
does.
I have no idea when his birthday is.
Bruce.
You got him there. That went over my head. It was so good for a second.
I had to. I love you, Bruce. Any final words for your doctor?
No. I mean, massive series against the Brewers coming up. We'll preview that on the next pod coming up here on Sunday and such. But yeah, I mean, that's the season, man. We were talking in prior pods about the Phillies and the Braves squaring off. They have 7. That's a huge part of the NL race. Cubs, Brewers for 7.
This is the Cubs part of it.
And unfortunately, it seems like they're lining up. I believe it's Miz, Dustin May, Harrison, and Logan Henderson. So literally, they are like, here are the 4 of those pitchers on our team. Have fun. And the Cubs are the best offense in baseball. So that's going to be an electric 4 games. Like the Dodgers series had a buzz just because it's the Dodgers.
Cubs,
but
Brewers in September.
I think that's going to be
on the line.
4 games, man. That's must-see baseball. Like the entire sport of baseball, the eyes got to be on those 4 games.
Get your popcorn ready. Alex, Cohen, Lance Brozdowski. Another episode of Cubs Now. Thanks for watching.